Gentlemen and ladies, hold the presses. This justice.
So Ed Davey and the Lib Dems have done which I and many other Liberal Democrat members have been crying out for. He's finally made a platform speech announcing a new policy.
Finally!
Setting up his party store that broadens out beyond just care. Hallelujah! Call it Christmas.
It's all the ways that we show love that feel like Christmas.
But first, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button if you enjoy this content and to stay notified. So, Ed Davey was speaking at the Institute for Public Policy Research at an event that happened just yesterday. And what did he do? He only went and launched an actual policy. I know! Can you believe it? A serious proposal that touches on green pricing, green energy and reducing the cost of living through their energy bills. And for an added bonus, he was seen spotted doing media rounds with the likes of the BBC, Sky News, GB News, you name it. He was pushing the news agenda like a leader should. And let's be honest, this is the rocket boosters we've been needing after what's frankly been a pretty dry few weeks in Lib Dem land. The media coverage has been minimal and depressing for the last few weeks as we try and scramble to get any limelight. Maybe someone over in Ed's team must have saw our debate in which me and some Liberal Democrat chums of mine discussed this problem.
Obviously, all three of us will agree on this, that there's a wonderful opportunity for the... And if Ed Davey made set-piece speeches and all the rest of it, which apart from at party comments he doesn't do, I mean, it just drives me to despair that we're not making what I believe it should be the most of this.
I agree with you and Ed Davey. I mean, I hear no speeches. If you look at Nigel Farage, he makes a speech. I mean, my goodness, that guy makes a speech if he's going to the toilet. And all the media, we need to make speeches and announce some policies, and we need broad-based policies. Because I agree with Ed Davey on care, and I know it matters to him on a very personal level, but you can't win an election on one issue.
But be quite radical. Have a radical platform like universal basic. Now, we are not the only ones when we say this, that as much as we enjoy seeing Ed falling off surfing boards, picking fights with MAGA and Nigel Farage on social media, which to be fair is vital, there's been a growing concern that we've been stuck in a bit of a Groundhog Day. Now, it does need to be said that once my initial excitement wore off and I sat down to actually read the speech and pick apart the policy, I realised something. It was a little bit technical and actually took me a few times over to reread the speech, their proposals, and then finding the Ed videos in which he explained it in a nutshell during his media rounds. Currently, green and renewable energy prices are pegged to wholesale cost of gas and oil. These are outdated contracts that are called renewable obligations. And it's the older scheme that make many existing or legacy renewable energy projects that are still tied to so expensive. The RO scheme is less stable, more complex, exposed to market price swings, especially to gas price spikes, which is just bonkers, right? Even if your energy is coming from wind or solar, you're paying the prices driven by global gas market. That's like pricing carrots based on the price of caviar.
Chance for our hero to show his devotion.
Are you okay?
What Ed is proposing is a decoupling of renewable from gas prices. So rather your bills being dragged by volatile fossil fuel markets, the cheaper and cleaner energy actually reflects in your wallet. It's part of a wider Liberal Democrat plan to cut energy bills and accelerate green energy in their transition. A win-win. But like I said, even though this is a good policy, maybe even a great policy, it's also quite a complicated one. However, basically, when you get down to it, our current arrangements of existing renewables and green energy is that they are pegged with how the oil and gas markets are. What he wants to do is to decouple them from that market. That's all it is. A simple change of how we organise the contracts could help reduce bills by up to a third or a half. And Ed repeated again that because the UK is reliable of using fossil fuel from foreign markets, then that puts us in the UK in a volatile position. So whenever global prices go up on oils and gas, because of how the green energy is coupled with that, they too also go up. So that's all what needs to be said in order to make such a policy get communicated well for the British public to understand. Now, to be fair to Ed Davey, in his media and interview rounds, he did do an excellent job in explaining this and how green and renewable energies is currently pegged to the oil and gas market. However, I do think that we need to make sure that this does get communicated well when we go into an election in order for the British public to understand this. Because, like I said, it's a good, if not a great policy, but if you try to explain this to the British public, it can get a little bit bogged down in detail and sound very, very convoluted and complicated. As said, Ed was seen doing his media rounds with the various legacy media outlets, with the likes of the BBC, GB News, etc., to discuss the policy. On GB News, I must say, going into the Lion's Den, who make no secret that they pivot their bias towards Farage's anti-net zero dogma, could have been risky, but he managed to hold his own, in which he debunked some anti-net zero myths. It was also nice for Ed Davey to call out the BBC for them running frit on Nigel Farage and not being accountable in their reporting. I think this was long overdue and needed addressing, even if it did mean nearly distracting the policy. While I do welcome Ed pushing back on the BBC for their lack of scrutiny, I do worry that it probably distracted the policy, and it's just a reminder of how much reform fill our everyday political conversation. However, it's so hard for the Lib Dems to get any elbow in on any legacy media that I could not foresee the best time to use that opportunity to raise this issue. It still concerns me that the clip of Ed Davey going after the BBC for their light-handed reporting on reform was being talked about. In fact, Ed didn't do himself no favours by sharing that clip on his own social media. I just felt like it ends up distracting the policy and brings attention back to reform. We pretty much go after reform every day, and this was an opportunity to set our store. But then again, some news is better than no news. And as I said, I couldn't find an opportunity this could be brought up again for us. But those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Take care and goodbye.